Potential romantic partner doesn't know what 10 plus 10 is. So I've recently started dating a 21-year-old girl, and while we've hung out I noticed that she doesn't ever count out her money when paying for something. She just dumps out all her money and gets the clerk to count the right amount for her. At first I thought this to be rude, but I later asked her some basic math competency questions that even a 6-year-old would know. For instance, I asked her what 10 plus 10 was and she was clueless. I asked her what 50 by 1 was and she responded by saying something like, I don't know, I'm bad at multiplication. I asked her what 2 plus 2 was and she's like, 4 duhh. And then I asked her what 5 plus 5 is and she responded with the correct answer of 10. So then I asked her what 10·5 is and she had absolutely no ability to come up with any sort of answer. She made up excuses and said, IDK. I can't do math right now, I barely got any sleep last night. And I worked a long shift today. Now obviously she has some form of a developmental disability, but is this severe? I don't want to jump to conclusions, but many of my coworkers have called her retarded based on this, as well as numerous incidents she has caused in the past. Not knowing what 10 plus 10 is this pretty typical or is it indicative of a more severe mental disability? I can see people taking advantage of her lack of basic counting skills, perhaps to scam her, and I wouldn't want that to happen. She also seems to talk really fast and lacks basic social skills, emotional maturity. To be honest, it's kind of frustrating and I don't know how to handle this. Could be sarcasm, could be math illiteracy, could be a developmental disability. Without knowing her background it could be hard to say. I would just take it at face value if someone does not know what 10 plus 10 is, regardless of the reason. Is that a deal breaker? I will say your coworkers calling her retarded is quite cruel. Dyscalculia is the number equivalent of dyslexia, something that I myself suffer from. The inability to count or do even basic math does not make a person stupid. Counting is not the most important thing in the world. Her lack of math skill should not be used to define her. Yeah, I'm gonna guess some kind of developmental disability or autism, but it seems like she wasn't given support by whoever her guardians was when she was a child. People can overcome it as children with the proper help and function as normal, but it doesn't seem like she was. I feel really bad for her. It's going to be extremely hard for her to have a normal life at this point, especially because it doesn't even seem like she realizes there's a problem. Maybe she has dyscalculia? It's like dyslexia but with numbers. The only problem is you being a shithead about something she's probably struggled with. Like, let's say she has some disability. Do you think it's appropriate your workmates called her retarded? She existed before you and without you. She has a job and maybe organized disability payments without you. Maybe she got help from people with that. Plenty of people struggle with paperwork. Your concern does not strike me as a logical concern about potential difficulties living with someone who is disabled. Ask yourself a question. Are you making the decision based on how she acts, or on whether she has a disability? Because your questions and concerns make me feel you think the idea of dating her if she's disabled is beneath you. Maybe I'm wrong in getting the wrong idea. You sound as if you are embarrassed by your GF. If you truly cares about this person and had any sort of empathy, you wouldn't allow anyone around her to talk about her, much less call her names. And I'm curious as to how is it that some of these coworkers know about this. I see through your interactions with the other commenters you've already come to a decision on what to do. You just wanted to see if it was a deal breaker for anyone else to make sure. I don't think she's the problem, I think you're the problem. And I don't mean that in a condescending way, that is just my opinion and we know what they say about opinions. If her learning disability bothers you, then break up for her sake so she can meet someone that's kinder and more accepting of her condition. It's 10-10, duh. Next question please, and make it tougher. If some guy started giving me an on-the-spot math test, I'd probably refuse to answer. 2. Perhaps she is developmentally disabled. Does she use social media? Does she write coherently? Can she carry on a conversation via text? Intelligence is measured in more than one way. Math isn't the be-all end-all measure of human intelligence. You buried the lead. She doesn't sound emotionally healthy. She's clingy, bad with boundaries, and she's trying to hold herself hostage by threatening self-harm. You need to leave this relationship now for your own safety. Sounds like President Plant Potts press sec hee. Maybe numbers make her anxious? In school I wouldn't be able to read out any numbers, no matter how easy, when the teacher would ask me to. Not because I couldn't, I just always got nervous and my mind went blank. However, when I am alone, I can do math pretty decently. Perhaps it's the same with her? I don't think the inability to do basic math should be a deal-breaker. However, from your other comments she sounds like hard work. To constantly have to reply with her and such doesn't sound healthy lol. If your partner has a hard time doing daily stuff, run for the hills. Not knowing what 10 plus 10 is this pretty typical or is it indicative of a more severe mental disability? She also seems to talk really fast and lacks basic social skills, emotional maturity. To offer an explanation from my personal experience, I have autism, and I can't do maths under stress. My brain just goes blank. I distinctly remember a teacher in 11th grade asking what 7b3b was, and I could not answer if my life depended on it. Yet, when I studied computer science, I was, very successfully, tutoring both discrete mathematics and statistics. It seems like her inability to do math is not her only issue. Threatening to cut herself if you don't become her friend is abusive and manipulative. I think you need to step away. This girl needs help before she is ready to be in a relationship. She sounds like she has an unaddressed learning disability, dude. She might have dyscalculia. How old are you? You're dating her for math skills. As long as she is fun to hang out with and talk to, pretty, loyal, a decent person, and shares similar views to you, what else matters? Just don't ask her to do your taxes. I mean, it's pretty obvious she's autistic. Was she homeschooled? I had a friend who was homeschooled and it was all about the Bible and had nothing to do with real education, math, science, English. And they had a ton of behavioral traits that were from lack of socialization. I'm calling BS. It's 2021. Who TF pays with cash? Yeah, that happened. So she just lacks basic education. Does she come from money? If so, she probably never had to try.